Hi, welcome to the part 3 of data mining project. In this part, we are going to go through processing of data. The title of this project has been changed. The new title is Predicting the Share Price of Genting Singapore. My name is NgJiunnJye, WQD 180009. For today's agenda, I'm going to go through first. I'm going to state what is the analysis goal. Then I'll go through the analysis data. Third, I'll go through the data pre-processing that we have to do, which covers the three data sets, which are the Singapore top 5 tourism stock data, Singapore tourism arrival data, Singapore air quality data. Then I'll go into defining the data, which I will go into the table properties and how to set the column metadata in SAS Enterprise Miner. Then I'll go into exploring the data in SAS Enterprise Miner, where we'll look at the first view of the data that we have and the histogram, then the pie chart. Analysis goal. The analysis goal for this project is a Genting Singapore stock investor seek to predict the Genting Singapore share price trend. So this is done by using the share price of 4 other tourism-related stocks in Singapore, the tourism arrival trend in Singapore, as well as the Singapore's air quality data, and using this data to predict the future share price trend of Genting Singapore stock price. Analysis data. The data that we're going to use in this project are the extracted share price of Genting Singapore stock, as well as 4 other top tourism-related stock comprises of Ascott Residence Trust, Singapore Airline, Hotel Properties, and Mandarin Oriental. Why we are looking into this data is because we think the share price of all the tourism data are correlated to each other. By getting the other top tourism data, we can correlate them to see how the general market overview and trend. Secondly, we're going to have the Singapore tourism arrival historical data. We're going to use this data for trending purpose. And we think that the Genting Singapore stock is highly correlated with the Singapore tourist arrival information. And third, we are going to look into the Singapore historical air quality information, which will give us the PSI, the Pollutant Standard Index. Why we are looking into this is because the Singapore tourism arrival data, even though it is very complete, but it is a bit lag. So the latest data that we have is up to July 2019. We don't have the data for August, September, and October. However, the air quality data, we can get it real time up to today. And we think that the air quality is highly correlated to the Singapore tourism, as well as it is going to impact the share price of Genting Singapore. First, we need to look into how we do the pre-processing of the data source that we have. The first pre-processing that we have is we need to pre-process the Singapore top 5 tourism daily stock data. The data that we have is in daily format, and we need to reduce this into top 5 tourism monthly stock trend. So how do we do that? Let's look at the data. Right. Before that, let me slightly introduce you to you. So this is a Squirrel, and what happened is by running Hive server, so by running Hive server in the background, so we are able to connect to this Hive using JDBC, and I couldn't find it, but yeah, this is, I think it goes out of buffer, but this is the Hive server. And once we have the Hive server, we can use any generic SQL client to connect to it by configuring the JDBC. So these are the bunch of libraries that we need, and once we configure this, we can connect to the Hive 2 on the host. Okay, so in this case what happened is I have run this. This is the Hive is running inside my VM, and this is the IP address of my VM. So I am able to connect to my Hive server using a SQL interface. Alright, so now let's look at the data. So this is the Singapore top 5 tourism stock data. So there are 13,000 rows, and each of the rows is related to each of the day where the stock price, where we have the stock price. So I believe this is because the share price doesn't move during the weekend. So the 3rd and 4th must be weekend, and 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10, 11 is a weekend. So we have the data for all the days that the stock is being traded. And this data we have from 2009 all the way until pretty recent 2019 October 22nd. And for this pre-processing, what we need to do is we want to see the trend of the share. So we need to convert the data into this format. So if you look at this, this is the final output, and this data format is in the day data is now converted into a monthly data, and we look at the opening price of the month, the closing price of the month, and based on these two prices we try to determine whether for that month whether the stock price has been on downtrend or uptrend. Okay, and we repeat this for all other stock, for Escort, Genting, Hotel Properties, Singapore Airline, and so on. Okay, so how do we do that? So back to my slide. So this is done by, in SQL there is a function called first value. So what we have to do here is to use this first value. This is called a window function. So by using a window function, I can get what is the first value, and in this window I'm creating a window which is the partition by the year month. Okay, so all the days data is now being partitioned by year month, and based on this I can query what is the first value of the month ordered by stock date. And by ordering this stock date descending, the first value of this would be the last value of this. So I want to get the last value of the close date. So this will give me the opening price of the month and the closing price of the month. And by comparing these two dates, I can tell whether this price has been on uptrend or downtrend for that month. So that's the pre-processing that we have to do for the stock price. Now let's look at the second data pre-processing that we have. The source data that we have is the Singapore tourism arrival data, and this data is interval data, and we need to convert this into a trend, into a nominal data. So how do we do that? Let's look at the data again. So this is the data source. So we have for each of the month from 1978, we have the total arrival international, and for every other month we have the trend, and it has the breakdown of arrival from total international, from Southeast Asia, from breakdown of the countries in Southeast Asia, and breakdown by different continents such as America, Africa, and different parts of Asia. So we have the data from 1978 all the way to pretty recent, but we only have up to July. So this is the interval data, and we need to convert this interval data into a nominal data, where they can tell us whether for this month the tourist arrival has been in uptrend or downtrend. The data that we are seeking to produce is something like this. So we have for every other month, and we tell whether the tourist arrival has been on uptrend or downtrend compared to the previous month. Okay, so how do we do that? So to do that, we are using a window function again. So in this case, there's a window function called lag. So what this lag provide us is it can tell us the next value, the next immediate value that is available. So it will bring this next value from the next row into the same row as the data. Okay, and once we have this total international is for the month, and this lag is for the total international for the previous month, we can compare the current month's arrival and the previous month's arrival and tell whether it's an uptrend or downtrend. Okay, next we go into data preprocessing 3, which is the preprocessing that we have to do for the Singapore daily air quality data. So the air quality data looks like this. Oops, it's taking a bit of time because there's lots of data. So there's 50 something thousand rows of data, because we have data for every day, and for the recent days we have data for every hours. Okay, so we have data from 2009 up to current. So in the past, the data come in once a day at 4 o'clock. Okay, but if you look at the more recent data, so the data come in every hour. Okay, and we have data breakdown by 5 different regions of Singapore: the west, east, central, south, and north. Okay, so what we need to do for this data preprocessing is we want to know what is the representative air quality value for the month across the time and across different location of Singapore. So how we do that is we do this in 2 different processes. So the first process is to group them by month to get the out of all the aggregation we are you're going to use the maximum, because the usually we are going people is going to look at the maximum as the as a perceived haze value, and they're going to look at the more serious part, the serious side of the problem. Okay, so the first part of it is to do this grouping. I'm going to get the minimum and maximum for each of the region grouped by year, month. And the second part of this is there's a function called greatest. So greatest allow us to go across all the columns. So now I have the max of all the region, west, east, central, south, and north. I can use this greatest function across all these 5 different columns to get the greatest of these 5 values. So this will give me the maximum PSI all over Singapore for the month. Okay, and the output of this is I have for every other month, I have the maximum PSI all over Singapore, 5 different locations of it, and the whole month. And I will convert this into the 4 different levels of air quality. The 4 different levels are: 1 is normal, 2 is for elevated, 3 is for high, and 4 is for very high. Alright, so that's the data preprocessing that we have to do. So once we have the 3 data preprocessing done, so next what we need to do is to combine all these 3 data into one single data source. So how we do that is by simply running a join between the haze data, stock data, and the tourist arrival data. Bear in mind that I'm using the left outer join with the tourist arrival data because the tourist arrival data is not up to date. We only have up to July, but I want to have in my data set the latest haze data and the stock data. Alright, now let's look at the data properties then. Alright, so this is the final output of combining the 3 data that we 3 data set that we have. So from here, what I have is I have 130 observation, 130 records, and I have 51 features or 51 columns. So each of the columns, it tell me some of the information which are in interval, some which are nominal, and some of this is a month. Okay, so this is the data set that I have derived. Okay, next let's look into the column metadata. Alright, so the column metadata, let's come back to this again. Okay, so what are the data that we have here? So I've summarized this into a table. Alright, so these are the columns that we have in this. So Africa, this is the tourist arrival from Africa for current month. _1, this is the arrival for previous month. And Africa trend, this is the telling us whether it's an uptrend or downtrend for the tourist arrival from Africa by comparing these two values. Right, we have here the air quality description, which are either normal, elevated, high or very high. We have the air quality level, which can 1 is normal, 2 is elevated, 3 is high, and 4 is very high. So bear in mind this air quality value, air quality level, this is ordinal data because the ordering of it is very important. Okay, and next we have the Americas tourist arrival. This is for current month, this is for previous month, and this is to get a trend. Okay, then we have for every of the 5 different stock that we have, we are going to get 3 different data. We have the month closing price of the month and opening price of the month and the trending. So the trend of this is nominal data and the price of it is interval data. So the trend is to compare the opening price and the closing price. So I have this for Escort, I have this for Genting data. So Greater China, this is the tourist arrival from Greater China, which is China, Hong Kong, and I believe Taiwan is included. This is the share price for a company called Hotel Properties. Same, we have 3 different columns: closing price of the month, opening price of the month, and the trend. This is the share price for Mandarin Oriental. The 3 fields: opening price, closing price, and the monthly trend. Maximum PSI, so this is the maximum PSI all over the Singapore for that month. Okay, month. Okay, this is a side effect of joining the table, so I'm going to reject this view. Okay, this is the tourist arrival from North Asia. Okay, and the trend from Oceania, and the trend from other country, and the trend. This is the share price of Singapore Airlines, opening price, closing price, and the trend. Tourist arrival from South Asia, tourist arrival from Southeast Asia. Total tourist arrival month, which this is again, this is a side effect of joining the table. This is the again year month view, and tourist arrival from West Asia, and the year month string value, which I'm going to use as ID. Alright, so those are the column metadata. Okay, now let's look at the first view of the data. So before we look into the first view data, what we need to do now is, okay, let's go to Enterprise Miner and try to edit the variables. Okay, we need to set the value accordingly. So the air level, this is ordinal, so the rest has been automatically set already. It's pretty accurate. So quality description, I'm going to reject this, so of no use. Month, I'm going to reject this as well because there's 3 month view here. I'm going to use only 1. Tourist month, reject. Okay, so for this prediction, what I'm interested to do is I want to know the trend of the Genting share price. So that's why for that I'm going to change the Genting month trend from input to target. So I can change this to the other share as well, but for this use case, based on the analysis goal, I'm going to use Genting Singapore. Alright, so once I have selected this, I can run explore to see the first view of the data. Okay, alright, so by default only 23 fields should be selected, and since we have 51 fields, so it doesn't show me everything that I want. So but the main thing that I want to see is I want to see this Genting month trend. So these are the downtrend and this is the uptrend. Okay, now let's take a look at the downtrend information. Okay, so it's quite interesting here because what we can see is if we try to relate this to the air quality data, I'll maximize this. Okay, on the downtrend side, so you can see that when the air quality is at level 4, which is very high, so the whole the Genting Singapore price go downtrend, and this is for level 3, which is quite high, more than 150. In this case, it seems like 2 out of 3 of the frequency, the Genting Singapore price will be going down. And even if I look at 2 is between 50 to 150 psi. So majority of the ratio is on the downtrend. Okay, so we can see that visually we can see there's some correlation between the air quality and the share price of Genting Singapore. Alright, so like now let's try to relate this with the other share. Okay, so we see here we have the Mandarin month trend. So you can see that when the Singapore is on the downtrend, so majority of the time the Mandarin hotel is at the downtrend as well, so you take a bigger ratio. And see, so some problem here with the hotel props, we can't see the data. Okay, same goes for the Escort. So this is the downtrend, so you can see that when Genting is on downtrend, majority of the time Escort is on downtrend as well for the month. Okay, and let's look at the tourist arrival data. Okay, tourist arrival data. So I'm more interested with the trend. So you can see here that so when the share price is on the downtrend, so a bigger piece of the ratio is on the downtrend. Okay, this is the total downtrend. So out of this, maybe 60% of the downtrend is when Genting Singapore is on the downtrend. Okay, I can look at the others. So this is Greater China. Doesn't seem to be that obvious. Okay. And if you look at Africa, this is more obvious. So you can see that this of the total downtrend, about maybe 70% of it this during the month where Genting Singapore is on the downtrend. Okay. Right now, if I want to see at the trend only, I'm lazy. I can do a plot on the other fields, but lazy to do that. So what I can do here is we select all the fields which are trend. Take the air quality level as well. This should be easier. Take all the nominal data and the ordinal data plus the where is my month? Okay, we'll explore this on this. Now let's take a look. Okay, let's look at Singapore Genting trend again. Select the downtrend and see what happened to the others. Okay, now you can see that when this is on downtrend, okay, the Sing Air is majority of it is on downtrend. Escort majority of it is on downtrend. Mandarin same goes as well. So we can see a very strong correlation between the top tourism share and air quality. I've gone through this before. And now let's look at the tourist arrival trend. You can see that from Africa, it's quite obvious. A bigger piece of this is when Singapore is on downtrend. From Oceania, so it's quite obvious. America, maybe almost half, not too obvious. International, maybe about 60-40%. And from Southeast Asia, this is quite obvious. Okay, when Singapore, when Genting prices on downtrend, the tourist arrival from Southeast Asia is on, majority of it is on downtrend. And for South Asia as well, it's very obvious. Okay, so we can see that the three data source, the three assumption that we have made in the beginning, it seems at the first glance it seems that there are some relation there, and we can believe this gut feel. Okay, now let's look at the histogram. Okay, for the histogram, let's take a look at the total arrival from international to build the histogram. Okay, so since I didn't select this, I can't do that. Total arrival. Okay, explore this again. Alright, so this is the, so from here what we can do is we can go to action, plot, histogram, and we need to select which view we want to use to build this histogram. So I want to take a look at this total international. Okay, finish. Alright, so we can see that the monthly arrival, the total monthly arrival into Singapore, the ranges of it is between 689,000 to 1.8 million. So with the mode data is about 1.1 million to 1.24 million. So this is the mode, the biggest piece of this. So this happened about 29 months. So it has this high value. Okay, so let's take a look if there's any missing data. Show missing bin. So right click, graph properties, and click on show missing bin. Okay, alright, so now this will show me that there is 3 missing bin in my data set. Okay, so the reason why we have these 3 missing bin is because of the data that we have for tourist arrival. We only have up to July, so we do not have the August, September and October. This is where the 3 missing bin come from. Okay, so yeah, so it looks pretty good. This is a pretty nice, not a perfect normal distribution, but pretty good normal distribution of data. Alright, so now let's look at the pie chart. Okay, how do we do a pie chart? Again, it's the same. Go to action, plot, and we want to do a pie chart of the target, our analysis target. So which is the Genting Singapore price trend of the month. Genting month. Okay, category. So select plot, select the pie chart, and we set the, this is the field that we want to draw the pie chart on, and we have to set the row as category. Next and finish. Okay, so this is the pie chart of Genting Singapore trend for out of the 130 records. We can see that there's a 60 frequency of uptrend and 70 frequency of downtrend. So a bit of computation, so this comes to about I've do this computation before, it's about a 46 to 54 split. Okay, which is quite balanced, not 50-50 but pretty balanced. Okay, so that's all for today's presentation. Thank you.